Hi everybody. So I'm just going to remind us a real reminder of why we're looking at the outdoor experience we provide for our children. We know that the Care Inspectorate are advocating for children to be outdoors for at least half their session time in nursery. And that nationally the advice is that all children should have at least 3 hours of outdoor play every day. So we have a real responsibility to look at what we're doing. And I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of the North Lanarkshire Council outdoor journey over the past 2 years, including some of our evaluations and some practical hints and aspects that we're looking at just now. The audit and quality improvement projects were large pieces of work, and I'm not denying they took quite a bit of time to compile. But tonight you might see an aspect that fits in with something you're doing in your journey. Please feel free to lovingly lift or shamelessly steal anything that you think might be of value to you, but don't be overwhelmed either. I was seconded to do a lot of this work, and I had some great colleagues working with me. Okay, so research tells us that before you begin any piece of work, it's really useful to undertake a baseline audit of where you are before you start to make any changes to practice. And this audit should involve your staff, children, their parents and carers, and any other stakeholders. And there are lots of audit tools you can use depending on what you're aiming to measure. But in North Lanarkshire Council, what we did was we undertook an audit of some establishments we thought had the potential to be registered as an indoor-outdoor setting, and that was part of our 1140 expansion plans. And I know there's some of our primary colleagues on, so I'm just going to tell you a wee bit about this model. So it's an indoor setting, but where the scale and quality of the outdoor space is appropriate for enhancing the child's quality of play and learning experiences. And it's suitable to register additional capacity and high quality natural outdoor spaces when combined with the indoor space. Settings looking to expand capacity to provide an indoor-outdoor setting must use the information in Space to Grow. It's a brilliant document, and this is a guide to what they need to consider. And it's things like free flow access indoors and outdoors. So that's just like children being at home where the door would be open, they could come in and out as they please. It should be suitable and naturalistic. The aims and objectives of the setting have to clearly reflect the passion and enthusiasm for staff to be outdoors, the staff skills, the knowledge and experience. And one of the other things was that there had to be sufficient toilets accessible to children. An indoor-outdoor setting takes account of the outdoor practice of an outdoor kindergarten or a forest setting and combine it with a high-quality indoor experience. And both indoor and outdoor spaces have to be accessible to children 100% of the operational time. So that meant children didn't have to do traditionally what they would do, go indoors to register. They could just start and finish their day outdoors. They could be out there for the whole session. Outdoor space is only considered as additional when it's an extensive natural place. And what we did was we created this audit tool to see if it would work. Okay. So if you have a look at some of the questions, it was just really looking at what's happening now, how well it was working, and any changes that you would like to make. But any approach you use to baselining practice ideally needs to be worthwhile and help you work out where you are. It should be a mosaic of options for involving children and others so you can build up a more complete picture. And 2 books that are worth reading if you're looking to do a wee bit of this work are The Mosaic Approach by Alison Clark and Listening to Young Children in Early Years Settings. But any baseline has to be doable within the hours of the job. So being realistic, we know just now we've been in the middle of a pandemic and nursery was switched on 1140 hours. It's not been an easy year, it's been a tough shift. So it has to be doable within your hours, but it also has to be repeatable at the end of the changes so you can do a before and after comparison. And one idea is just taking photos of your outdoor space, and the children can be involved in this with you, and asking them to photograph their favourite parts of the outdoor space or what they like to do. These photographs can reveal insights into their perception of the outdoor space and its function. So it's really about involving the children in everything that we do. So the audit tool provided an excellent piece of evidence for the self-evaluation process, and it was the basis of a wider action plan, because what we discovered, a wee bit like Hayley, was Sometimes people thought they were outdoors more than they were, and there were real barriers, there were real challenges, and it was everything from people maybe feeling a wee bit not so confident, they were maybe a bit risk averse, or it was genuinely the weather. And we do live in Scotland, if you don't have the right clothing, I'm the coldest person, not tonight right enough, but I'm generally the coldest person you'll meet. So when you see me in outdoor play, I'm never at my most attractive because I just go about putting on more and more layers. Okay, so what did we do? From the audits, we discovered there was a gap in some areas in terms of our outdoor experiences, so we didn't have that consistency across the board. So we worked with our improvement advisors on a quality improvement project, and we asked establishments to gather data for 6 weeks to find out the exact times their outdoor area was open to the children. And we just recorded it, paper and pencil. It was really quick. It was just really, what was the story? And it was interesting because you'll see people started writing on it about the weather. And when we first put this out, we didn't have a box for the weather, and somebody said, Liz, you've missed that out. So it was important to people. We wanted to know which children were playing outdoors and what type of play they were experiencing when they were outdoors. It was quick and easy, but it was so illuminating for the staff and children. And we looked at how much and how often we should measure, and we ensured the data we were gathering was realistic, it was manageable. We didn't want to ask people to do anything extra. They were busy trying to get themselves and quite often a large number of children outdoors. The data was qualitative, there was great consultation, it got views of stakeholders. So we had that really trusting relationship where we just said to people, write this down, and I have to say people have given me their permission. I'm not sharing this without their permission. And there were other aspects which were quantitative. We wanted that data, we wanted the numbers, the facts and the figures. And I am quite geeky, so we did analyse and display it in run charts, but please don't be put off by any of that. It was all quite simple. But what happened was practitioners started really noticing trends within their own data. So it wasn't about us coming along and saying you really have to be out there more than you are just now. People could see for themselves. And if I think about my own practice, the way my system was set up in my nursery class, the outdoor person was also the person who was on the door. And I have to say, if I was the person on the door, I had great long conversations with many parents. And by the time I would have filled in the register and passed on messages and started getting out to play, I wasn't as quick as I possibly should have been. But you don't sometimes see that when you're working within a system. It's only when you step back and look at what's happening. So we know that analysing data can be one of the hardest things to do at times. And please don't worry about working out things like percentages or having fancy run charts. It's the story that gives you the biggest picture. There are loads of tools you can use to help you with things like percentages and run charts. In fact, one of the best things to come out of lockdown, I have to say, has been our more effective use of the digital tools available, like Microsoft 365. Maybe some people have been using Forms for a long time, but it was a revelation to me that you could actually analyse your data. It popped it into a pie chart and an Excel spreadsheet for you. It was amazing. So the main thing is that you interpret any data effectively. And if I just give a wee example from the Outdoor Quality Improvement Project, just to tell you about one of the nurseries who were gathering data around which children were playing outdoors. And all that member of staff did was she had a list of the children's names, she had the days across the top, and she literally put a wee tick or a dot beside the children that were going out. And she discovered after a couple of weeks that 2 of her children were really reluctant to be in the outdoor area. And what she did was she drilled down deeper and she discovered 2 things. The wee girl just didn't want to wear the nursery jacket. So part of their system was that they had lovely waterproofs for the children, and this wee girl just didn't like wearing it. And there was a wee boy who loved imaginative play indoors, and she realised there actually was no provision for that outdoors. But she was an amazing person. I have to say, she built a stage and she worked out how that wee one could get out with her own jacket on. So it didn't take a lot to tweak it in that nursery. But the key to success is that if you're testing a change idea, just think carefully about how much data you need. And any data over time enables us to analyse if any change ideas you have made a positive impact. And I think Ailey saw that in some of the things she did, like that wee strip of land, when they started letting the children use it. It wasn't just to be looked at, and your photographs were really lovely. So it doesn't have to be a laborious task, just a wee paper and pen, or if you're more comfortable than me with an Excel spreadsheet, and that saves you time, you can do it. I just wanted to show you this example from one of the nursery classes, and this was when they were measuring the children who were accessing their outdoor area in every session, and they wanted to find out exactly what was happening. So this was just the nursery had the children's names and the tick sheet, but what it shows you, it might initially cause you a wee bit of alarm, because you can see on the first 2 days no one went outside, and you might be wondering why not. So as well as having their tick sheet, they also had a wee table, and they recorded on it what happened in the 6th of May. So the 6th of May actually was a holiday, the 7th of May was an in-service day, and the 8th of May there were school inductions. So there was no need to be alarmed. It wasn't just that nobody fancied getting out that day because it was blowing a hoolie and they were all staying inside. There was a real reason. So the data began to show for them what could happen, and what was happening was on days maybe when it rained, only 4 children were going outside, so the weather was having an impact. So they realised actually it was because their clothing wasn't right, or did they need some form of shelter. So they realised the changes they had to make were to get appropriate clothing for all children and staff, and they got a shelter, and things really improved for them. And I think earlier one of my colleagues on the chat tonight was talking about the types of play that happen outside. So what we looked at, first of all, obviously, was how long the door was open, what children were going out, and then we wanted to know what was happening when the children were out there. So this is just an example of play types taken from Play Scotland. And we just used this really simply. It was staff put a tally mark beside what they could see was happening, and they did it on a time sample. So they looked at it at different times during the day, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and they did it over 3 days. So it doesn't have to be something that you're going to do for 6 weeks necessarily. So the staff in this particular nursery thought the children had a lot of energy they needed to burn, but when they actually looked closely through their observations, they saw that on Thursday there were a high number of children being creative and social, and on Wednesday and Friday you can see the children were really exploring their environment. But we would need further information to bring it to light. I'm just trying to give you a wee snapshot of how quickly you can do it. But you would bring that to light through your written observations or any photographs. But when you continue to measure over time, you build this bank of rich data that you can analyse accurately. But sometimes we just need a quick win. We're looking for a quick solution. We know something's not quite right and we want to fix it there and then. The key is to be really specific about what you're measuring. And as you can see, we initially wanted to see if children had access outdoors, and then we moved on to really looking at the learning that was taking place outdoors. And it helped us to move into a much clearer understanding of play pedagogy in the early level, where all practitioners can understand and plan for that deep learning outdoors, where they observe the children, they scaffold their learning and provide the appropriate level of challenge and support. But remember, the evaluation process is unique to your setting, and just tailor it to fit the needs of your staff and your children and your families. So these are just a few samples from our journey. I'm going to just very quickly, I'm being mindful of time. My other friends, I think, pinched all the time. Okay, so I just want to share with you some of the key aspects of our audit. So we know that suitably skilled, qualified and experienced staff are fundamental to high quality experiences and outcomes for children in early learning and childcare. And many staff fully embrace outdoor play and learning and understand the different range of experiences and opportunities children can have to complement their indoor experiences. The ethos of outdoor play and learning should be embedded in staff practice, and our staff need to be motivated and enthusiastic about the concept of playing outdoors. They need to help enable children to make independent choices about where they want to be and what they want to do and what they want to learn. We can use How Good Is Our Early Learning and Childcare to complete some self-evaluation. For example, in Quality Indicator 2.2, the curriculum, this indicator highlights the importance of placing the needs of children at the centre of our curriculum design and development. It focuses on the importance of offering children rich and exciting play and learning opportunities indoors, outdoors and within their community. And can I say somebody in my chat had access to a beach? So how exciting would that be out in your community? The curriculum is designed to reflect local and national circumstances and is most effective when it is highly relevant to children and families and has been shaped by their engagement. A clear and shared pedagogy promotes high quality learning and teaching and results in positive outcomes for all children. And one of the challenge questions for this indicators is, what do we do to encourage a child's sense of belonging and increase their knowledge within their wider community? If staff are involved in this process, they should be able to recognise features of highly effective practice by creating rich and meaningful opportunities for our children to be active participants in the community. And we often refer to the process of looking inwards, outwards and forwards when examining our provision. Okay. So just if we think just now, this is particularly relevant, hand washing in COVID times, but we would be looking at this no matter, even when we're out of this awful pandemic. So you need to consider how to provide suitable hand hygiene facilities for both staff and children, including warm running water, liquid soap and disposable hand towels. No mean feat if you're somebody quite new to outdoors. The Health Protection Scotland guidance are based on the requirements that children should be able to wash their hands independently, and it does specify warm water because that improves comfort, which encourages better hand washing practice in children, especially in cold weather. And staff have to be quite creative sometimes to find a method of keeping water warm or topping up with hot water when required. And we just popped the link to Juliet Robertson of Creative Star. She's got a terrific bit of information about hand washing. So if you don't have that lovely wee sink that's in one of our partner nurseries, it's absolutely beautiful. You can make a tippy tap or one of the other sort of homemade taps. Sleep and rest is important. You need to think about where children can sleep or rest outdoors. The sleeping spot needs to be away from the hubbub of the main area, but where staff can see or hear the children. Even children who do not nap as a routine sometimes need a wee short rest. And just remember to consider the space. It should be as cosy and comfortable as possible. And children need to be dressed in layers of clothing according to the weather. We know it's not good for a child to be too hot or too cold when sleeping. And remember, just always touch the neck of a child, and that will give a wee indication of their comfort levels. Think carefully about hammocks. Our youngest children wouldn't be in a hammock, but they're absolutely incredible for the older ones. Although some of the photographs we have, I have to say, are the staff. And the conversation I had with somebody the other day said, is the hammock big enough for me to be in? Okay, if we think about shelter, it's really important to provide shelter in any outdoor area. And children will require places that provide respite from the elements. And that's whether it's too cold or too warm. Not that we get too many of those days, but they do come. They need to be able to access the shelter independently whenever they wish to. And things like building dens and creating hidey holes offer some shelter, but fulfil other important functions. They help children develop a sense of belonging. They provide private space away from adult gaze. We sometimes struggle with that because we want them to be in our sight at all times. But they provide time to spend alone for playing and resting. And they also offer places for small groups to gather. So there's many ways to provide shelter. You can do your natural shelter, and as children are small, it's important that you get down to their height when assessing your natural options. What may feel like a strong wind to an adult standing up can feel totally different at ground level behind a stone wall or in a little homemade den. So just think about the location of your shelter as well, and make sure the doors or openings face away from prevailing winds. And if your area is fairly open with little or no tree cover, think about how to provide shelter from the sun. So consideration of the children's needs is key. It's important they can feel warm on cold days and can warm themselves up in a range of ways. Okay, but also consider your adults. Be mindful of their needs. The needs of staff and other adults do need to be taken into account, and they also need to be able to shelter, and they may have seating requirements too. It can be a long shift if you're out in the outdoors all day. And staff may need somewhere sheltered to have a break or to do some paperwork, either in your garden or if you're further afield in the forest or the woodland. And we know that budgets are tight, so often a grant is the only way to provide this for yourself. And again, if you've not been on Juliet Robertson from Creative Star, you can just actually Google grants and it comes up on her website. She keeps them updated across the whole of the UK. And just the two examples we've got, they're from North Lanarkshire Council Gardens. So one's just a shelter for children to rest, and the other one, they've just recently turned that, it was just a shed, and they've turned it into those most amazing outdoor sand pit for the children. And I think when Jenny was talking about affording and potentiating environments, you'll recognise this is one of your students, Jenny. I think this is her place. Okay, so just coming back to the main message, I'd just like to finish with another look at a statement from the Care Inspectorate, who are committed to supporting, promoting and developing good quality outdoor experiences and opportunities for children. The expectation is clear in the health and social care standards that as a child I play outdoors every day and regularly explore a natural environment. However, it is the quality of experiences and opportunities that are important, and it is fundamental to the health and well-being of our children. So don't be put off if you've got that wee concrete sort of, it sometimes feels like a pain. I know that's the way mine felt sometimes, but the adults who were out there provided the most amazing experience, rich learning experiences for the children. So I hope you find this information helpful when think about evaluating your own outdoor play. And if there are any aspects that would be useful, as I said at the beginning, please feel free to lovingly lift or shamelessly steal. And I'm going to pass you back to Anne, who's taken us into the next group activity.